Hi, I'm Martin McGrath, Financial Edge Group. We specialise in helping people look after their retirement and set themselves up. A question I got the other day was actually around, how do I best set up my inheritance for my kids? What should I be doing to maximise what they get? Which is a bit different. It's really nice of this person to consider that. And so we took them through the process. We actually answered some questions for them. And there's kind of three fundamental things that I talked them through, which is one, we need to invest for the future. And that is invest in some assets that are going to at least meet or keep up with inflation. One of the biggest risks around money in retirement, either for yourself or for future generations, is that money is going to be worth less in the future. I.e., if we've got 100 grand in the bank account, we're leaving it there for 20 years because we don't need it, we pass it on to the kids in 20 years' time, what that's going to buy for them is going to be a hell of a lot less than it is today. So we at least try and get some exposure to some kind of investments that are going to keep pace with inflation, even if you don't give it to the kids now, but at least that it's kind of whatever that is equivalent worth by the time it passes on to them, it hasn't diminished, it hasn't devalued in future value. Because even if you had $1 million in cash now, you pass it on 20, 30 years, it's going to buy a lot less than it is right now. Point number 2 is understand the tax consequences. There's 2 parts to this. One of those is understand the tax consequences of what happens with your super. And I actually recorded a whole separate video about this. But parts of your super, if it's left directly from your super fund to your adult children, they can pay tax on. Potentially at 17%. 17% doesn't sound like too much, but if we're leaving a nest egg, even if it's only 100 grand, that's 17,000 in tax just lost. If it's 100, let's say it's $1 million, that's 170 grand in tax lost. There's ways that you plan for that appropriately, we can take that tax down to 0. So if we want to maximize our inheritance, we minimize the amount of tax that's going to be lost through super. Happy to have a chat about that if that's a concern for you. The other part is also tax on your other investments. And again, there's a separate video on this, but we've got a particular strategy for a client where they've got a large investment pool where they have a lot of capital gains tax, and they know that the future clients or future dependents might end up selling this. And if they sell all of that in 1 year, there's going to be a lot of capital gains tax to pay. But if we spread that out over a number of years, we can drastically reduce the tax that's going to end up being paid. There's still some tax being paid, but it's being spread out at a much lower rate over a lot of number of years to diversify a bit, but also to reduce the tax on that inheritance. So some proper planning there can make some big differences. And we're talking about tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending upon your circumstance. My third rule, as a bit of a cheeky rule, is don't worry about it. It's your money. Spend it, enjoy it, do what you want with it, put yourself first, don't worry about the kids. But if you're in a position where you've got enough, you don't need anymore, and you want to maximize this stuff, feel free to use those tips or reach out and have a chat. We can definitely help you maximize your inheritance for the kids by setting it up in the right way. If you've got a particular question about your situation, feel free to pick up the phone, have a chat with us, or jump on our website at financialedgegroup.com.au.